A photograph emerged 3 days ago that shouldn't exist. Two men sitting in the Oval Office, both smiling, both appearing comfortable despite months of brutal political warfare between them. If this image is authentic, we're witnessing one of the most calculated political reversals in modern American history. If it's fabricated, someone wants us to believe something even more dangerous is happening. The younger man in the photograph is Zohran Mamdani, the 34-year-old Democratic Socialist who just won New York City's mayoral race by calling Donald Trump a fascist despot. The older man is Trump himself, appearing more relaxed than he has in months. Between them sits a folder marked with classifications that most Americans will never see. Let's pretend this is normal political theater and not something infinitely more concerning. But that's not the disturbing part. The timing reveals everything about what's actually happening here. Mamdani needs federal security clearance to receive terror briefings and coordinate with federal law enforcement. He needs billions in infrastructure funding to fulfill his radical campaign promises about affordable housing and free public transit. He needs protection from Trump's threatened immigration raids that could paralyze city operations. Trump, meanwhile, needs to demonstrate his administration can work with progressive leaders, neutralizing Democratic resistance while fracturing the socialist movement from within. What we're seeing isn't political compromise. It's systematic co-optation disguised as pragmatism. Remember that forgotten Simpsons episode where young activist Lisa discovers the town's new community partnership program? The federal representatives arrive with briefcases full of grants and infrastructure promises, and everyone celebrates the cooperation. Only later does Lisa realize Springfield's local government has been quietly absorbed into federal control, with Mayor Quimby still holding his title, but every decision now serves interests he never intended to serve. The episode ended with Lisa staring at a wall of portraits showing former mayors who thought they were negotiating when they were actually surrendering. Strange how those cartoon predictions keep manifesting in reality. The economic implications here extend far beyond New York's budget crisis. This meeting establishes a template for federal control over progressive municipal governance that could reshape American federalism entirely. When Trump freezes $18 billion in New York infrastructure funding and then offers to restore it through cooperation, he's not negotiating. He's demonstrating the federal government's ability to financially coerce local resistance into compliance. Progressive mayors across the country are watching this closely. If Mamdani can maintain his political base while accepting federal oversight, it proves progressive governance can be neutered through carrots rather than sticks. Seattle, San Francisco, Portland, and every other progressive stronghold becomes vulnerable to the same pressure tactics. Wall Street analysts are calling this the municipal accommodation model, a framework for neutralizing local progressive policies without the political costs of direct federal intervention. Instead of fighting sanctuary cities, climate initiatives, and wealth redistribution programs, the administration simply makes municipal governance financially impossible without federal cooperation. And here's where things get uncomfortable. The technological dimension of this alliance represents the most significant threat to municipal independence since the Civil War. Modern cities depend on federal intelligence sharing, cybersecurity coordination, and digital infrastructure support to function. When Mamdani accepts federal security clearance and intelligence cooperation, he's essentially integrating New York's digital nervous system with federal surveillance networks. Smart city infrastructure, predictive policing algorithms, and municipal data collection systems all become federally accessible once local governments accept this level of cooperation. Trump's administration gains real-time insight into New York's economic activity, population movements, and municipal decision-making processes. progressive resistance becomes impossible when the federal government can predict and preempt local policy initiatives through digital surveillance. This isn't about immigration enforcement or budget negotiations. It's about establishing federal dominance over the information systems that control urban life. Once Washington can monitor, predict, and influence municipal governance through digital integration, local democracy becomes political theater, performed for an audience that's already lost control. I keep thinking about that other Simpsons scene where Moe's Tavern gets upgraded through a corporate partnership. The bar looks the same. Moe still serves drinks. Customers still gather to complain about their problems. But every conversation gets recorded, every transaction gets analyzed, and every decision Moe makes somehow serves corporate interests he doesn't fully understand. Springfield celebrates the modernization while missing the silent takeover happening behind the familiar facade. The national security implications should terrify anyone concerned about federal overreach. Trump's border czar has announced increasing enforcement presence in New York City specifically because of its sanctuary status. But with Mamdani apparently willing to cooperate on federal priorities, those sanctuary protections become meaningless political gestures.
Progressive voters will be told their mayor is protecting immigrants while federal agents operate with implicit municipal assistance. The resistance maintains its rhetoric while enabling the policies it claims to oppose. Sanctuary becomes performance art, while deportations accelerate under the cover of bipartisan cooperation. What makes this particularly insidious is how perfectly calculated the public presentation appears. Both men avoided direct confrontation during their media appearance, instead focusing on shared concerns about affordability and public safety. Trump praised Mamdani's electoral victory while downplaying their ideological differences. Mamdani emphasized common ground while carefully avoiding any statements that might anger his progressive base. This choreographed diplomacy serves both their immediate political needs while obscuring the power dynamics actually at play. Progressive voters see their mayor successfully engaging with federal authority, while conservative observers witness Trump's ability to moderate radical politicians through direct engagement. Meanwhile, the underlying structural changes happen quietly, without public debate or meaningful oversight. The psychological warfare dimension cannot be ignored either. By publicly praising Mamdani and treating him as a legitimate political partner, Trump accomplishes something far more valuable than simple policy concessions. He demonstrates that progressive resistance can be converted into cooperation through the right combination of pressure and incentives. Other progressive mayors now face an impossible choice: maintain ideological purity while watching their cities struggle with federal obstruction, or accept cooperation while risking accusations of betrayal from their political base. This creates a devastating split within progressive political circles. Pragmatic progressives will argue that working with federal authority serves their constituents' immediate needs, while idealistic progressives will claim that any cooperation legitimizes authoritarian governance. The movement fractures along practical versus principled lines, eliminating unified resistance to federal expansion. But here's what makes this strategy particularly brilliant. The federal government doesn't need to convert every progressive mayor. It only needs to convert enough to create the appearance of growing bipartisan consensus. Once a critical mass of progressive leaders accepts federal cooperation, the holdouts appear increasingly isolated and extremist. Public opinion shifts from supporting principled resistance to demanding practical governance, and the remaining progressive strongholds collapse under political pressure from their own constituents. Meanwhile, that same forgotten Simpsons episode showed something even more chilling. As Springfield's local government gradually accepted federal assistance, other towns across America received identical partnership offers. The federal program wasn't targeting individual cities, it was implementing a nationwide strategy for absorbing local governance into federal control. Each successful conversion made the next target more vulnerable, as mayors could point to neighboring cities thriving under federal partnership while their own communities struggled with federal obstruction. What if this entire meeting was theater designed to demonstrate federal power over progressive resistance? If Trump can turn his most vocal critic into a willing partner through simple financial pressure, he's proven progressive governance can be bought, controlled, and ultimately eliminated without direct confrontation. The international implications are equally disturbing. Authoritarian governments worldwide are closely studying American federal-municipal relations, looking for techniques they can adapt to control their own internal resistance movements. If the United States successfully eliminates progressive municipal governance through administrative pressure, it provides a blueprint for authoritarian regimes seeking to neutralize local opposition while maintaining the appearance of democratic governance. European Union officials have privately expressed concern about what they're calling municipal accommodation protocols being exported to member states facing populist pressure. The technique of using federal funding to coerce local compliance could easily be adapted by national governments seeking to control regional autonomy movements or progressive city governments challenging conservative national policies. Here's what I think will actually happen, and I wish I was making this up. Mamdani will receive just enough federal funding to claim victory on housing and infrastructure while quietly compromising on immigration, surveillance, and economic policies that actually threaten Trump's agenda. Progressive voters will celebrate the pragmatic achievements while ignoring the systematic erosion of municipal sovereignty happening beneath the surface. Trump gets to demonstrate that federal pressure can neutralize local progressive governance more effectively than legal challenges or political attacks. The model gets replicated across America as progressive mayors discover they can maintain their political brands while serving federal interests. Local democracy dies quietly, suffocated by financial dependence and administrative integration. The media will praise bipartisan cooperation while missing the underlying power grab entirely. Political commentators will celebrate pragmatic governance while progressive cities surrender their independence one budget cycle at a time. Federal control over municipal policy becomes normalized, institutionalized, and ultimately invisible. The most sophisticated aspect of this strategy involves creating what intelligence analysts call voluntary dependency. Rather than imposing federal control through force or legal mandate, the administration creates conditions where accepting federal oversight becomes the only viable option for municipal governments. Cities maintain the appearance of autonomy while operating under effective federal control. And mayors convince themselves they're protecting their constituents while actually serving federal interests. But here's the part that should keep us awake at night. 3 hours after the official photographs were released, encrypted channels leaked a different image from the same meeting. This photograph, which disappeared within minutes of appearing online, shows the same Oval Office conversation from a different angle. In the background, barely visible behind Trump's chair, sits an open briefing folder with a classification level that shouldn't exist for municipal meetings.
The visible page header reads, Operation Municipal Integration, apparently part of a broader federal program for absorbing progressive city governments through administrative cooperation rather than political confrontation. The folder contains what appears to be a list of target cities, timeline projections, and funding mechanisms designed to replicate the Mamdani model across America. If this leaked image is authentic, we're not witnessing political pragmatism. We're watching the systematic federal absorption of progressive municipal governance disguised as bipartisan cooperation. If the image is fabricated, someone with significant resources wants us to believe this program exists. Either scenario suggests we're dealing with something far more sophisticated than routine political negotiation.
The leaked document apparently includes psychological profiles of progressive mayors, detailed analysis of municipal financial vulnerabilities, and timeline projections for implementing federal oversight in 24 major American cities. The program combines financial pressure, intelligence integration, and public relations management to create what internal documents reportedly call cooperative neutralization of progressive resistance. The Simpsons predicted this exact scenario in that rarely discussed episode where Springfield's government accepts federal modernization assistance. The town keeps its local elections, its mayor, its city council meetings, but every policy decision somehow serves federal priorities that residents never voted for. The episode ended with a chilling shot of other small towns across America receiving identical assistance packages, with mayors who thought they were negotiating when they were actually surrendering. Fiction keeps becoming documentary footage, and the predictions keep coming true. Do you think this alliance represents genuine political pragmatism or systematic federal co-optation of progressive resistance? If financial pressure can neutralize progressive mayors, what does that mean for local democracy in America? Which side actually benefits more from this partnership? The Democratic Socialist who needs federal cooperation to govern? Or the president who just demonstrated he can buy progressive compliance through administrative pressure? And here's the question that haunts me. If Trump can convert his most vocal progressive critic into a willing partner through simple federal leverage, what does that tell us about the actual strength of American progressive resistance? But I haven't told you about the most concerning development yet. Yesterday, another document surfaced through the same encrypted channels. This one appears to be an internal White House memorandum outlining Phase 2 of what they're calling Municipal Accommodation Protocols. The document describes a systematic program for identifying, isolating, and neutralizing progressive municipal governance through financial incentives and administrative integration. According to this leaked memo, the Mamdani meeting wasn't an isolated diplomatic gesture. It was a proof-of-concept demonstration for a broader federal strategy designed to eliminate progressive resistance at the local level without the political costs of direct confrontation. The program apparently includes detailed psychological profiles of progressive mayors, financial pressure tactics, and timeline projections for implementing the New York model in dozens of other cities.
The document outlines 3 phases of municipal integration: initial contact and relationship building, gradual policy alignment through funding incentives, and full administrative absorption disguised as ongoing partnership. Each phase includes specific metrics for measuring compliance, techniques for managing public perception, and contingency plans for mayors who resist cooperation. What's most chilling is how thoroughly the federal government appears to understand progressive political psychology. The leaked memo includes detailed analysis of how progressive mayors can be convinced to accept federal oversight by framing it as protecting their constituents from federal punishment. The technique exploits progressive politicians' genuine desire to serve their communities while gradually converting them into instruments of federal control. The psychological manipulation described in these documents operates on multiple levels simultaneously. Progressive mayors are presented with carefully constructed scenarios where accepting federal cooperation appears to be the only way to protect their communities from federal retaliation. The choice becomes collaboration or punishment, with no middle ground offered. This creates what intelligence specialists call manufactured consent, cooperation that appears voluntary but occurs under conditions of implicit coercion. Even more disturbing, the leaked documents describe how federal agents monitor progressive mayors' private communications and personal relationships to identify psychological pressure points. Family members, political allies, and community leaders all become potential leverage points for ensuring cooperation. The federal government doesn't just pressure progressive mayors professionally, it systematically exploits their personal vulnerabilities to ensure compliance. If this document is genuine, we're witnessing the quiet federal takeover of American municipal governance. If it's disinformation, someone wants us to believe we're powerless to resist federal pressure on local democracy. Either way, the message is clear. Progressive municipal governance exists only as long as the federal government allows it to exist. The Simpsons warned us about this in that episode where Lisa discovers the federal partnership programs are actually absorption mechanisms designed to eliminate local resistance while maintaining the illusion of democratic choice. The episode showed dozens of American towns celebrating their federal cooperation while quietly losing their ability to make independent decisions. Fiction becoming reality one prediction at a time. The most terrifying part? This strategy might actually work. Progressive voters want affordable housing, infrastructure improvements, and municipal services that require federal funding to achieve. If accepting federal cooperation means sacrificing municipal independence, most voters will choose the immediate benefits over abstract principles about local sovereignty. Democracy dies quietly, purchased with infrastructure grants and budget supplements.